Jeremy Saland, it's good to see you. So one of Trump's attorneys was present in the courtroom for Clark's hearing. And I want to read for you some of our reporting from inside court, which was at one point, Judge Stephen Jones's probing questions directed at one of Clark's attorneys led Trump attorney Stephen St, who was in the courtroom, to whisper, "This is not good." I mean, what could he be hearing that is making him feel that way? Again, because the big question is, how would what happens to Clark impact Donald Trump?
There's another finger pointing directly at the president. We hear from Schaefer, he wants removal because I'm listening to the federal government, but more specifically, I'm listening to the president and his people telling me what to do, and this is why I responded as I did. Now we have another person, Jeffrey Clark, who's saying, I spoke to the president, although there was no direct evidence reflecting that other than an affidavit or a declaration, but I spoke to the president and I'm following the president's orders, and this is my quote unquote lane that I had to be in. But at the same time, you heard from Jody Hunt saying, no, that's not that lane, because this is not something that we would have done in this capacity with the Department of Justice. So it's just another finger pointing at the president and another potential denial for removal.
So even setting aside any conversation of this removal request, the removal request that we're seeing, you think that there's actually evidence showing up here or statements being presented in court that stack up against Donald Trump when it comes to the overall question against him?
Yeah, I mean, first, setting aside also what the former president said in a recent interview about his involvement and what he did, which is a whole separate issue. Again, you keep on having people saying as part of their defense, whether they're cooperating or flipping, that's a different story, but they're saying, hey, I'm acting as I did, and it's being perceived, and in fact very well may be, has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, acting well beyond the scope of my position, and I'm doing something to subvert an election. But anything that I'm doing is because of that man, the president. That's problematic for the president, and that may mean someone's going to cooperate, not necessarily Jeffrey Clark, but it's just more fingers pointed at him. It's difficult.
So let's see what happens. The judge is going to decide on that. There's also this new reporting out of Colorado I wanted to ask you about. A judge there now says that they hope to decide by Thanksgiving about a lawsuit brought by a watchdog group. The lawsuit argues that the 14th Amendment, parts of it, the ban on insurrectionists holding office, means that Donald Trump is disqualified from appearing on the presidential ballot in Colorado. Do you see this happening?
It's an interesting question whether he's engaged in or inciting a resurrection and insurrection, pardon me. What you don't have to have is a conviction. What you don't have to have is someone taking up arms. This doesn't have to be the Civil War. We're not talking Jefferson Davis, keeping him from running in the future. But he was on that platform, on that stage, and he was calling out people to take back the country. There were some comments by other people as well. There was statements about the Proud Boys to stand by. So he did take some actions that don't require him, again, to be marching with a foot on the ground, breaking a window and entering the Capitol illegally. But it's a real question. It's a genuine question, whether it survives and whether it passes muster. You know, a lot of people are kicking it. Department of State or Secretary of States from each of these particular states are saying, let the courts decide. Right. And it may very well go up to the Supreme Court, and that's why it has to move quickly. Otherwise, it's not going to be resolved before the season starts.
Right, exactly, because we're already in the thick of it. Super interesting. Let's see where that one goes as well. Thanks. Nice to see you, Jeremy. Thank you.
You as well.
Sarah?